Before we start managing the portfolio risks, we need to develop a proper risk management plan, and it can be defined as a component of the project, program, or portfolio management plan that describes how risk management activities will be structured and performed. This is the first process of the portfolio risk management knowledge area. A risk management plan will be a subsidiary plan of the portfolio management plan. It also includes reference to the corporate risk management guidelines, policies, and procedures that define the organization's risk strategy, tolerance, and thresholds for the organization. The risk management plan provides the approach that will be used by the governing bodies for assessing risk in proposed new portfolio components. So how we are going to deal with the portfolio risks, how we will identify and analyze the portfolio risks, all this will be documented as part of the portfolio risk management plan. It will also include a section about the organizational risk strategy to ensure alignment between the portfolio risk management plan and the organizational risk strategy. Different types of new investments will be considered, knowing that generally venture or growth type investments carry more attraction due to a higher potential return, but they are a higher organizational stretch and on average carry higher risk. This is due to the nature of the portfolios. In order to maximize return on investment of resources, some high risk investments might be considered, but the risk management plan will show how the governing bodies should work to balance the investment risk and manage the overall expected return against the known risks. So due to the nature of the portfolios, there will be huge investments and the organizations will accept a high level of risk in anticipation of the revenue of those investments. So the portfolio risk management plan should deal with this, and the result will be having a proper risk-based decision making. Now, we will need 4 inputs to kick off this process: the portfolio management plan, the portfolio process assets, the organizational process assets, and the enterprise environmental factors. 3 tools and techniques will be needed: the weighted ranking and scoring techniques, graphical analytical methods, quantitative and qualitative analysis techniques. The outputs will be updates to the portfolio management plan, portfolio process assets, and the organizational process assets. The data flow diagram of this process is showing that you will need input only from the developed portfolio management plan process and inputs from the portfolio documents, the organizational process assets, and the enterprise environmental factors, while the outputs of this process will be used as inputs to the managed portfolio risk, and it will be archived as part of the portfolio documents. Now, what are the 4 inputs? Starting with the portfolio management plan. While you are planning for risk management in your portfolio, you will rely on this plan as it will provide you with a guidance regarding the portfolio governance model, performance management, communication, and stakeholder engagement for developing the risk management plan. It may also define roles and responsibilities for conducting risk management, budgets, risk management activities, schedule, risk categories, definition of probability and impact, and stakeholder risk tolerances. So all this information will be documented in the portfolio management plan, and it will be a great guidance for you while you are developing the portfolio risk management plan. The second input will be the portfolio process assets. Relevant portfolio process assets used as input while you are planning for the portfolio risk management includes the list of portfolio components, the portfolio component selection criteria, prioritization algorithms, how you prioritize your portfolio components, the portfolio risk register, portfolio issue register, portfolio performance matrices, portfolio resources, and portfolio budget. All these are examples of the portfolio process assets you will use in this process. Organizational process assets you will be using includes the vision and mission statements, organizational strategy and objectives, organizational risk tolerance, and lessons learned. And the last input will be the enterprise environmental factors that might affect the portfolio risk management planning, includes the organizational culture and structure, the organizational infrastructure, the organizational project management, legal and regulatory considerations, industry requirements, and market conditions. All these are examples of internal enterprise environmental factors. External ones includes published information, Commercial databases, academic studies, market research, and benchmarking may also provide relevant information for the portfolio risk management plan. So once we have these 4 inputs, we will apply some tools and techniques, starting with a weighted ranking and scoring techniques that might be used by the portfolio manager and the governance board in order to assess the risks in multiple portfolios and the overall structure of the portfolios. As you are assessing risks between different portfolios, you need to rely on some scoring techniques. Such ranking and scoring are applied to any technical and management risk details during this process. The ranking or scoring is provided by any group or individual with specialized knowledge or training, and it's available from many sources. So we will use the weighted ranking and scoring techniques in order to assess the risks in multiple portfolios. It should be noted that the process for identifying and managing risks are embedded in the portfolio management process groups, and it's not necessarily separate activities. You need to consider risk management in each of the portfolio management processes. Planning identifies areas around risk management, which include portfolio risks important to the organization, information like the risk owners, risk tolerance, and risk processes. High-level plans for conducting the risk management activities are being defined by ranking and scoring as well. Risk management cost elements and schedule activities are developed for inclusion in the portfolio components budget and schedule respectively. So all the activities we will be conducting as part of the risk management will be included in the portfolio schedule, and the budget for those activities will be included in the portfolio budget as well. Risk contingency reserve application approach may be established or reviewed, and risk management responsibilities are being assigned. General organizational templates for risk categories and definitions of terms such as levels of risk, probability by type of risk, impact by type of objectives, and the probability and impact matrix are tailored to the specific project. If templates for other steps in the process do not exist, they might be generated during those meetings, and the outputs of these activities will be all summarized and documented in the portfolio risk management plan. The second tool will be graphical analytical methods. During planning for portfolio risk, the specific tools and models that will be used to measure risks are defined, and usually these tools are covering the assessment of the probability for each risk and the impact or the consequences. Although assigning a probability rating and an impact rating are not an exact science, the probability and impact matrix allows a standard, unified view and assessment of the organizational risks. So having a proper probability and impact matrix is mandatory for the risk assessment exercise. Risk probability assessments determine the likelihood for occurrence for each specific risk. Risk impact assessment investigates the potential effect, both negative effects for threats and positive effects for opportunities on one or more of the portfolio's objectives. Probability and impact are assessed for each identified risk. So you cannot have a risk without having an assessment for this risk probability and impact at least. In some situations where you have more complex environments or higher priority risks, you might need to assess the risks based on multiple other parameters in addition to the probability and impact, but at the minimum, you need to assess based on the probability and the impact. Risks might be assessed in interviews or meetings with participants who have been selected because of their familiarity with the risk categories being discussed. So the perfect way to have the exact probability range or impact range for a risk is by conducting interviews and meetings with expert stakeholders. Portfolio manager members and knowledgeable persons from outside the portfolio might be included as well. Expert judgment is a tool you can use while you are assessing the probability and impact, because there may not be adequate information on risks from the organization's database of past portfolios, programs, and projects. And here is an example of the standard definition of probability and impact matrix. You will have the probability here and you will have the impact here. Okay, and the left part is for the threats and the right part is for the opportunities. So by having a combined effect of a probability and impact for each risk, you can deal with the dark gray zone of threats and opportunities, as those are the ones with the highest priority. The level of probability for each risk and its impact on each objective is evaluated during the interview or meeting. Explanatory details, including assumptions that justify the levels assigned, are also recorded, and all this will be recorded in the risk register, which will be a part of the portfolio. Risk probabilities and impacts are rated according to the definitions given in the risk management plan. Sometimes risks with low ratings of probability and impact are not being retained for additional work, but they are included in the watch list. So the watch list is a document, or it's actually a part of the risk register, where the risks with low ratings of probability and impact are being recorded for future monitoring. Some other parameters which you can assess the portfolio risks based on, starting with the importance, which defines which types or categories are more important than others. Timing, that defines when certain risks or types of risks have more impact. Interdependencies, that deal with the connections between risks and connections between types of risks. Confidence limits define the assurance levels of the risk and performance measures. Prioritize risk lists define how risks will be listed and prioritized in a portfolio list. So these are some of the parameters you can assess the portfolio risks based on. The last group of techniques as part of the developed portfolio risk management plan process will be the quantitative and qualitative analysis techniques. During the planning processes, there are specific tools and processes which are identified for analyzing trends, balancing the portfolio, and managing investment choices. Now, in my PFMP exam, I had 2 or 3 questions about the quantitative and qualitative analysis techniques that might be used in this process, starting with the status and trend analysis. I assume you are familiar with such techniques that are used frequently in project, program, and portfolio management. It compares current performance data and recent trends and compares recent changes in the portfolio in order to plan for risk management. Rebalancing methods, that we use in some situations to reallocate the portfolio when it has deviated away from the strategy, or in order to better balance the portfolio risk. So if the portfolio deviated from the planned timeline or the planned baseline, you can use rebalancing methods to reallocate the portfolio. Investment choice tools, expect 1 or 2 questions only about the investment choice tools. There are various tools and techniques that can be used as part of this group, starting with a trade-off analysis. As from its name, it's a trade-off, so it determines the effect of changing one or more factors of the portfolio. The market payoff variability, that focus on pricing and sales forecasts and depends on a number of market factors, whereby the effects of changing one or more of these factors might affect portfolio itself or the portfolio strategy. You can use also the budget variability, that determines the effect of changing or updating the portfolio. Performance variability, that analyzes the performance of the portfolio. Market requirement variability, that analyzes changes in market requirements in relation to the portfolio and its components. And time to market variability, which determines the effects of the portfolio velocity. So for the PFMP exam, you don't want to dig deep in each of those tools. You just need to memorize and understand the definition of each of them, and I assume all of them are simple and clear. Portfolio risk exposure charts, which provide you with the following information. The outcome probability analysis of the portfolio, where the portfolio manager makes estimate of potential portfolio outcomes with respect to the success criteria. The success criteria might be the portfolio schedule, budget, quality, and so on, listing the possible values of the corresponding performance indicators with their associated confidence levels. An example is the Monte Carlo simulation. It will give you the confidence level of meeting a specific budget for the portfolio or completing the portfolio on a specific date. This output is typically expressed as a cumulative cost distribution that the portfolio component manager can use to set realistic targets in line with stakeholder risk tolerances. And here is an example of the cumulative frequency distribution conducted for the portfolio budget, showing an S-curve showing the confidence level here and the expected portfolio budget on the horizontal axis. Another information that can be used or that can be shown on such charts is the probability of achieving specific portfolio objectives. Like the example I just showed you, the portfolio manager may estimate the probability of achieving specific objectives under the current plan using modeling techniques as explained previously. The previously shown figure shows the cumulative frequency of meeting certain cost objectives. By looking at the chart, you will understand that the portfolio is only 12% likely to meet the budget of 41K or 75% likelihood for a budget of 50K and so on. So by using such charts, you will be able to determine the probability of achieving a specific portfolio objective. Now, what are the outputs of this process? Starting with updates to the portfolio management plan. And this update will be actually by including the updated risk management plan and the portfolio management plan. The portfolio risk management plan updates standard criteria to allow the portfolio team to assess the risks that are identified in an effective fashion consistent with the organizational risk strategy. So we want to make sure that the developed portfolio risk management plan is fully aligned and consistent with the organizational strategy. The portfolio risk management plan details the manner in which risks will be identified and analyzed and how these risk responses will be developed, managed, and communicated. Risk management is an ongoing process and it's not a single event. The processes, cadence, and reporting are detailed in the portfolio risk management plan. All this information will be documented in the portfolio risk management plan. Now, what are the key sections you should expect to see in a properly developed portfolio risk management plan? You will have the methodology, which defines the approach, tools, and data sources that may be used to perform risk management on the portfolio. Roles and responsibilities, which defines the owners, lead, support, and team members for each type of activity in the risk management plan and clarifies their responsibilities. I had one question in my PFMP exam asking about where can you search for the risk management activities, roles, and responsibilities, and one of the options was the portfolio management plan, as the risk management plan is part of the portfolio management plan. Another section is the risk measures, which defines the risk categories and criteria for probability and impact, the structure of probability and impact matrix, and the stakeholders' risk tolerances, thresholds, and appetite. The frequency, when and how the risk management activities and processes will be performed throughout the portfolio cycle, establishes protocols for governance requirements. Also, it establishes risk management activities to be included in the portfolio management plan. And the last section, key section, will be the risk categories, which provides a structure that ensures a comprehensive process of systematically identifying risks to a consistent level of detail and contributes to the effectiveness and quality of the identify risks process. An organization can use a previously prepared categorization framework, which might take the form of a simple list of categories. So depending on the complexity level of the portfolio and the risk exposure in the portfolio, you will have more than these sections in some situations, but this is the minimum sections you should expect in a portfolio risk management plan. The second output of this process will be updates to the portfolio process assets. Due to the development of the portfolio risk management plan, you might update the portfolio funding, for example, to include or to cover the budget of conducting the risk management activities. Another update to the organizational process assets might occur as an outcome of this process. Such updates includes the risk checklists, new risk categories, or subcategories.